What is going on, everyone, and welcome to r/Entitled Parents. In today's first story, a wealthy entitled parent tries to get in on a free Secret Santa that is meant for really poor people at Christmas time who can't afford Christmas gifts. Despite just buying an extremely expensive car, she demands a free PS5 from OP. Before we get into that, guys, make sure you are subscribed to my channel if you aren't already. I'm trying to hit 600,000 by the end of the year, and if all of you watching now who weren't subscribed hit that button, we would get there in just one day according to my YouTube analytics, so hit the button and let's jump straight into this video. Christian Holier Than Thou Entitled Mum is back. This time I'm not so nice. To give some background, every Christmas me and my wife do our own version of Secret Santa, where we find some family in our church or surrounding community that is very financially strained and might not be able to afford Christmas gifts that year, and we buy gifts for everyone in that family. This has been the 4th year we've done this, and quite frankly, it's a very rewarding experience to deliver holiday joy to a family in need. We mainly find our families secretly by asking church friends if they might know of a family that is going through a very tough time financially. Most of the time, the family either knows a Secret Santa is helping that year or is completely blindsided Christmas morning with a special delivery. Although, due to COVID, we plan to load the presents on their doorstep and ring the doorbell as we get the family's reaction from the sidewalk. Now on to the story. We got our information for 2 separate families that needed help this year, and me and my wife were planning out which gifts to buy for both families, gift budget, etc. During our brainstorming session, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. When I picked up, it was a kid's voice, informing me that my mother would like to talk to you. I could hear the kid hand the phone to someone else, and then I was greeted by a familiar voice, the entitled mum of the story, aka my friend's aunt. "Hello, OP." My eyes grow wide and I silently curse under my breath. "EM, to what do I owe the pleasure?" "Well, I'm glad you asked. My nephew mentioned during a family Zoom call earlier that you were buying Christmas gifts for random strangers this year, and how commendable your charitable giving was." I was mildly flattered at my friend's words, but at the same time, I was wishing that he had just kept his mouth shut. Well, look, he is correct. I am doing a Secret Santa this year. "Perfect. That's why I wanted to call you. You know of a family in need?" "Yeah, me." One thing I should point out about the entitled mum that I learned from my friend is that she used to be married to a rich guy whose family owned some oil fields. From what I understand, when they divorced, she didn't get ownership of the family's assets. Despite this, she still stuck the guy with alimony and gained 70% custody of their child. Back to the story. I say, you need help? Yes, you see, I really wanted to get my son a PS5 for Christmas, and since my gift budget is already strained this year, I'd figure you could step up and help me bring him some holiday joy. At this point, I already suspect that something very suspicious is going on here. What do you mean that your gift budget is already strained? "Well, my car broke down and I decided to buy a new one." "Well, that's unfortunate. Hopefully your new car is reliable." "Sure is. I decided to treat myself to an early Christmas gift and bought one of those brand new Cadillac Escalades." I just so happened to have my Chromebook in front of me during the call, so I used it to look up the MSRP for a new Escalade, which had a starting price above $75,000. At that moment, a very cold anger had started to arise within me, much akin to my previous encounter with this entitled mum. Here she is again trying to take advantage of me just to get a PS5 for her kid, while she blows money on a Cadillac. She could have bought a much cheaper car and could still have money left over for multiple PS5s, and could have still had money left over to buy gifts for multiple families. My wife could see that I was not in a good mood and looked concerned as I walked into my office. I may have been nice to the entitled mum before, but this time I was going to give her a piece of my mind. "So yeah, going back to the PS5, if you could get one with a few I cut her off. "No. Excuse me? I will not be buying your son a PS5 for Christmas." "But he really wants one. Are you going to deny a kid his wish?" Let me tell you something about my charitable giving. It goes to families that barely have enough to get by at the end of the day and are staring down the barrel of choosing between rent or Christmas gifts, not entitled people like you who have poor spending habits. "But why I never? How dare you?" Look who's talking. You obviously have more than enough money to purchase an SUV that costs more than a blue-collar income, yet here you are trying to bum a free PS5 off of me, all because your budget is strained. If your budget is so strained, then why don't you sell that overpriced car and buy one yourself? You should watch your tongue. You know, the Bible says that the younger generations should be subject to your elders. This pushed me over the edge. At this point, I was fuming, and I decided that it was time to burn a bridge with this entitled mum. You know what? Maybe if you spent more time actually reading your Bible instead of thumping it all the dang time, you'd actually be more thoughtful of people other than your frickin' self. Heck, maybe you be the one doing the Secret Santa. Don't you ever call my phone again. Clearly, you are someone who is not worth wasting my time on. I'd wish you a Merry Christmas, but maybe even that's too good for you. I hang up. I blocked the number and proceeded to text my friend to make sure his aunt never contacts me again. Oddly enough, I didn't need to take time to calm down. Telling this entitled mum off was actually quite cathartic. Well, yeah, that is utterly ridiculous. Do you know what's funny though? Like, this entitled mum could easily have bought another very expensive car, like, you know, above $65,000. Like, imagine she buys a $70,000 car instead of a $75,000 car. That then gives her a budget of $5,000 to spend on Christmas gifts if she wants. I don't know how much a PS5 costs. I presume it's like $500. You can get 10 PS5s with that. If you just bought a slightly less expensive car than a $75,000 car. Like, you don't need a $75,000 car. That's too much for a car unless you really are rolling in it. Clearly, this entitled mum is not, or maybe she is, and she's just, you know, trying to get even more free stuff out of you. I don't know. Oh, what a horrible person. Like, she's bordering being a choosing beggar, and to be fair, just everything else under the sun. Oh, Jesus, what a horrible person. Now moving on to our next story. My entitled grandma's claim to inheritance, which could have ruined me and my siblings' future. For a little context, my family is a pretty well-off family. My mum and dad has garner money and land for their business and are able to send me and my two siblings to a local international school. The majority of the land they bought was in my mother's name because of a stupid reason totally unrelated to this story. But remember this point. My mum, however, passed away with a brain tumour before I could even finish high school. 5 years ago, but to this day, I'm still affected by that event. Before she passed away, Dad felt that something around the conflicts regarding inheritance would occur, so he tried to clear everything up. He even visited the land registry every day for a whole month, and he transferred the inheritance into the name of him, me, and my siblings. Now, as you all will probably know, where there's a lot of inheritance involved, your fam's about to get busy. Enter our entitled grandma, e.g. my deceased mum's mother. There weren't really any issues to begin with. My dad promised to let my grandma stay in the home he and my mum built. The home was registered in my dad's name. He even provided her a monthly payment of approximately $650. It might not sound much, but in my country it was enough to live comfortably, considering she isn't responsible for rent and other bills. Everything, apart from some minor stupid inheritance claims here and there, seems fine for about 3 years. The 4th year is when stuff goes down. Around that time, I was doing a master's degree in the UK, which I recently just graduated at the time of this post. My sister's doing an undergraduate in Australia, and my younger brother is about to graduate high school. As it's always been both my parents' goal to send us abroad for education, you can pretty much guess the financial burden my dad has now. My entitled grandma, however, decides that it's none of her concern and decides to sue. Apparently, according to the lawsuit document, she is entitled to all the land that is registered in my mum's name prior to her signing it off. The house my dad is letting her live in, along with other stuff worth over millions in USD. You might be thinking, what the F? But didn't your mum sign the inheritance documents? This is where it gets even more effed. Despite my dad sending my mum to be treated in one of the best and most expensive private hospitals in the country and splurging nearly $1 million USD in medical treatment, my entitled grandma still claims, "This person has attempted to indirectly murder my daughter and intends to hog all the inheritance to himself." These included blurting out excuses like tricking her during a not fully conscious state, it's a brain tumour after all, feeding her insanitary green water during her homestay period, or even intentionally instructing the doctors to not fully treat my daughter. What makes my blood boil even more was that my entitled grandma did not care about the fact that me and my siblings, her grandkids, are still financially dependent on my dad for our education and livelihood, and wanted my dad put in jail on the charges of inheritance scam. The details of the lawsuit and stuff is complicated, but just to give you a summary, my dad has upper hand, albeit a few loopholes exist, as all the documents had been signed, and the patient documents did not support any of her stupid claims. He, however, decided to settle the lawsuit in court by saying that he will pay my entitled grandma $500,000 in cash, allowing her to stay in that home for the rest of her life and allowing her to collect rent on one of my dad's small condos for the rest of her life also. This is on the condition that my entitled grandma cut all family ties with us and never brings the issue of inheritance to court ever again. When I asked my dad why he decided to settle by giving my entitled grandma money, even though she filed a lawsuit against him without regards to his financial burden and him still having the upper hand, he simply just uttered, "Your mum loved your grandma very much, and I promised her I would never hurt your grandma." And that was that. On to the aftermath. The lawsuit was settled about a year ago. If you're wondering what happens after, my mum's family is completely a mess. The last I heard, my entitled grandma has already burnt through all of the money and is now receiving death threats from her group of relatives as they want in with the share. Now she's begging to see the grandkids she loves so much. Talk about karma. Wow, what a story. And yeah, guys, I'm going to say this, and I know a lot of you probably are going to disagree with me, but I think that OP's dad is an absolute legend, you know, just doing whatever, you know, his wife, who has now passed away, wanted him to do, you know, look after her mum, who she loves so much, OP's grandma, even if she is an absolute cow. I mean, does it get much worse or does it get much more selfish than wanting all that money for yourself and decimating the rest of your family? I could never even think to, you know, even ponder something like that, especially when it's inheritance. It's not even your direct money. But anyway, doing that and giving her $500,000, it's mental, isn't it? $500,000, even though nobody left in her alive family liked her, just because her mum loved her, her daughter loved her so much. What a great thing to do. Yeah, probably isn't the smartest thing to do, but I guess it just proves how much he loved his wife. So yeah, pretty admirable thing to do for sure. Anyway, guys, that is going to do it for this episode of r/Entitled Parents. If you want more Entitled Parents content, check out this playlist of all my Entitled Parents videos. Actually, the first one in this is an Entitled Parents experience of my own. So if you want to see my experience with an Entitled Parent, click this right now. Also, if you are new here, make sure to subscribe. And if you want some lovely merch like the stuff I'm wearing right now, that's down here. All right, peace. See you later with a brand new upload.